Welcome to the Author Alchemist podcast. I'm here to make your writing magic happen. I'm going to teach you how to use your superpowers to ignite, inspire, and encourage your creativity so that you can turn lead into gold. Join me, Kimber York, as I delve into the many mysteries of inspiration, motivation, and imagination. Good morning, y'all. Welcome to the 18th episode of the Author Alchemist podcast. It is a cloudy Saturday morning here for me, and I live in Florida, so that means it's a typical Saturday morning. We get the reputation for a lot of sunshine, and we have a lot of sunshine, but oftentimes it's interspersed with very cloudy, rainy days, especially going into summer, as it is right now. So it's kind of nice, actually, and I'm enjoying it. My dog is asleep, and I am here recording this podcast for you. This week, we're going to talk about alpha readers, what they are, and why I believe they are important. A lot of people might have some familiarity with the concept of a beta reader, which isn't unlike having an editor. If you go and Google the two terms online, you'll see that a lot of people blur the definition of beta reader and editor. And I can't really say that I have a preference for one or the other. I think it's more of a comfort zone issue for a lot of us. Some people get really intimidated by the idea of an editor looking over their work, especially in the early stages. Some people come into writing and aren't familiar with the different kinds of editors that are out there. There's story development editors, there's copy editors. So there's a lot of different ways an editor can come out of work. But a beta reader is generally considered someone who looks at an early version of your story and provides feedback that focuses on issues such as story arc and character arc, as well as nitty-gritty things such as grammar and sentence structure and paragraphs, all that sort of technical stuff that we all love so much. If you don't love that stuff, then you're in the wrong career field, my child. Bless you and move on. But that is getting down into the weeds of a story. And there is a huge break between sitting down and writing a story and having an editor or a beta reader look at the finished draft. A lot of times that's a long, lonely road to travel as you bang out all the words that you're trying to put into this story and then edit them out and then put them back in again and all that kind of fun stuff that we complain about so often on social media. At least I do. And I've seen a lot of other writers do too, so I know I'm not the only one. But a alpha reader is a little bit different. I am not sure if the term alpha reader came out of the fan fiction community the way I'm pretty sure that a beta reader did as a concept. But I haven't honestly looked into the history of the terms too much. I came across the term beta reader when I was first getting back into fan fiction in 2007, 2008. Likewise, I came across the term alpha reader much later than that. It was still an uncommon term, but it made sense to me the very first time I heard it. I knew exactly what they were talking about. So what is an alpha reader and what is the value of having one? An alpha reader is the very first reader of a story. And in my opinion, an alpha reader may not even read the story. An alpha reader might come in while you're working on the outline or a summary or the very, very beginning stages of what the story might possibly become. Because an alpha reader is not a beta reader, is not an editor. They're not there to get down into the weeds They are there to be partly a cheerleader and partly a pathfinder. One of my alpha readers is my friend Kim McShane. I call her my plot mistress because oftentimes when I come to her with a story, it's when I've crashed into a dead end. Remember, I'm a pantser, so this does happen fairly regularly. And she will go back over with me everything that's happened in the story and help me figure out either where I went wrong or help me think outside the box of where I thought I was going. Sometimes she reads what I've written, and sometimes she doesn't, but she's always there at a point where the story is not even finished yet. She sees it before everybody else. More than even helping me figure out problems with what I've done to my story and the way I've basically written myself into very dangerous corners, is she gives me encouragement. She's the one who helps me become excited about my story again and helps me figure out what I'm trying to accomplish with the story. And she gives me hope that I can actually reach that goal by putting in the work. As I said before, writing can be a very lonely job, and we get a lot of advice about sitting your butt down in the chair to hammer out the words. And then we get a lot of advice about editing and polishing and formatting and submitting or publishing or whatever we're planning to do with the story. But that long, bleak point between sitting down and writing and finishing it can be very discouraging and even depressing. If we're coming into a story, even if you've outlined it, you're going to come across things that surprise you with the characters or the setting. You might end up going in a different direction than you thought you were going, which can be very disconcerting, even as someone who considers herself pretty thoroughly a pantser at heart. I have had those situations where I've realized, wow, I've just gone way off the beaten trail here from what I thought I was doing. And occasionally that's required me going back and changing a character profoundly to get back to where I want to go. And sometimes that requires me to let go of the expectations that I had for where the story would go. An alpha reader helps you climb over those hurdles. An alpha reader encourages you when things look bleakest. An alpha reader reminds you that they love your writing and they want to hear more about it. An alpha reader looks at the story, if they're reading what you have so far in a draft, and says, absolutely, I can't wait to see what happens next. Or if they're looking at the outline or even a finished draft, they can say, wow, this is really moving, or this is really exciting. You know, I could see where something might need to be tightened up here or there, but I think you've really got a solid grasp of it. And if you think this sounds contrived, if you think this sounds fake, then I ask you to remember and make a note of this, because I'm not going to reference sports very often on this podcast. But if you watch sports, especially in America, we'll see cheerleaders, and football and basketball particularly is what I'm thinking of. They're contrived. They're professionals even that spend hours practicing ways to get people excited about why they're there, watching the game, and even encouraging the athletes who are playing the game. So yes, cheerleading is a contrivance, but it's not fake. It's not insincere. And I think a lot of people look to an alpha reader as something they don't need because it's too good. We have been conditioned, unfortunately, to think of editors or anybody who looks at our work as people who need to be hypercritical. But more often than not, that kind of hypercritical evaluation of our work is more detrimental than beneficial. Mindset is really important for writers. It's overlooked a lot, but it is the wellspring of where we get our motivation to keep going and encourage ourselves to write the stories we want to write. As you know, me, Kimber York, as the author alchemist, is here to encourage you to write the stories you love to read. The key word there is love. You have to love what you're doing, and you have to love what you're writing, and you have to love the type of stories that your writing fits into, whether it's a specific genre or just a more general literary style. That's a positive emotion, love. It's not a negative one, and it's not a critical one. That is not to say that there isn't a place for criticism and analysis. Of course there is. We don't get better by just blindly throwing out writing that hasn't been scoured for quality. But we also don't get better at writing if we're so weighed down by negative thoughts and doubts about ourselves that we don't write. And that's where an alpha reader comes in, because they're the ones who can prop up our listing, failing confidence right when we need it most. So how do you find a good alpha reader? It's a little bit more tricky than finding a good beta reader, honestly, because beta readers, like editors, are people who really enjoy that style of reading and criticizing, even if in positive ways, a story. An alpha reader is generally more of a friend than even an editor or a beta reader or a reader at all. An alpha reader is someone who knows you very well. They know your writing style and are familiar with your writing in general. An alpha reader should not be hung up on details. I did make a mistake once of giving a friend a copy of a book. It was a draft, and I was looking for an alpha reader, so I was like, read through it fast, give me your insights, let me know what worked, what didn't work. Let me know what you liked. They took it a little too sincerely and was going through and doing copy edits and line edits and lots of stuff that I just didn't need at that point. It was more discouraging at that point than encouraging or helping me out. So be aware when you give someone the draft or the outline and you're expecting them to be an alpha reader, make very clear what your expectations are. That's always true, whether you have a beta reader or an editor, but specifically with an alpha reader, you need to make sure that they understand that this is a very high level type of reaction that you're looking for. So surprisingly, I find that good alpha readers rarely make good beta readers or editors, and vice versa. So be aware of that when you're trying to find someone to be a good alpha reader for you. And finally, they need to be unrelentingly supportive. No matter how bad the story draft you give them is, even if you know it's bad, if they don't come back and say something positive and encouraging about it and are pushing you to finish it and are trying to make you write more or fix whatever problems that you guys have decided might be an issue going forward, then that is not the alpha reader for you, my friend. It might take you a couple of tries to find a really good alpha reader that suits your needs. And honestly, you may even be uncomfortable with your alpha reader at first because they are being supportive of you. And isn't that tragic that in our society, writers are more accustomed to being slammed and denigrated and criticized as an affirmation of our writing skill than we are being encouraged by it? So that's my podcast for this week, and I hope it was helpful for you, maybe gave you some thoughts and insights into what you need as a writer and how to go about meeting those needs by finding a supportive, encouraging, and trustworthy alpha reader. I would say the alchemy lesson for this one is that writing is a lonely job, and having an alpha reader helps inspire, motivate, and focus us along the way. That is a gift more valuable than gold, in my opinion. And that's how I feel about my alpha readers. So if any of y'all are listening, that's you. I love you so much. I like giving away these podcasts. I like having this material out there. I think knowledge should be free. And to that end, I encourage you to sign up for my Bulletproof Writer online, email course. It is also free. If you go to my website, www.authoralchemist.com, you will be able to sign up for the Bulletproof Writer course. So it's 14 modules that are emailed directly to you, hopefully giving you some advice and inspiration you need to get started on your writing journey, or continue it, or restart it, or wherever you are in that journey. If you're listening to this on iTunes, please rate this show as high as you possibly can if you feel like it's something other people might benefit from. I hope you do. And finally, well, it's time for us to go get some writing done, don't you think? So have a great, productive week full of inspiration, motivation, and creativity. Talk to y'all next time. Thank you for listening to the Author Alchemist podcast. I'm Kim Boo York, and I hope this episode has helped to clear away the cobwebs from your inspiration and given you the power to write the stories you want to read. Now, it's time for us to get some writing done. Talk to y'all soon.